Welcome back, everyone. My people, it don't happen. So Tinubu don't rush sign the 2026 electoral bill into law, even though Nigerians disagree and still protesting about what the Senate passed yesterday. Tinubu went ahead and signed it into law. So according to Akpabio, he said that Nigerians are happy, that those that are making noise are politically motivated. Can you just imagine? Akpabio is saying that Nigerians are making noise. Nigerians that are asking for transparency, free and fair election are making noise. Like, these people are really taking Nigerians for granted. My people, do you see how Tinubu rushed and signed this bill into law because they know that this particular one is going to favor them? Let me allow you guys to listen and hear what Tinubu as well as Akpabio and also what Nigerians are saying after Tinubu passed this bill into law. Just take a listen.
It is time that we have confidence in our system. No matter how good a system is, it's managed by the people, promoted by the people, and the result is finalized by the people. In fact, for final results, you are not going to be talking to the computer, you are going to be talking to human beings who will announce the final results. And when you look at the crux of various arguments, maybe Nigeria should question our broadband capability. How technically are we today? How technically will we be tomorrow to answer the call of, either read time or no? And as long as you appear personally as a manual voter in any polling booth, but ballot paper is given to you manually, you decide in a corner and fingerprint, thumbprint the party of your choice, you cast your vote without hindrance and any interference. Ballots are subsequently counted manually, sorted and counted manually. It's just the arithmetic accuracy that is entered into from easy. It's the manual, essentially. And the transmission of that manual result is what we're looking at. And we need to avoid glitches. I'm glad you did. Interference, unnecessary hacking in this age of, computer inquisitiveness. Nigeria will be there. We will flourish.
A lot of provisions in the amended act will definitely make Nigerians very happy. We did a very thorough job, very painstaking. We took cognizance of the peculiarities of the country. We did not allow too much outside interference, and we're very patriotic in our submissions. And at the end, we believe strongly that what the president has just assented into Act of Parliament will make for a better election in the future, and will also lead to prosperity, and will also lead to transparency of the electoral process. At the end, Nigerians will benefit a lot from future elections. Every vote will now count.
So how have you been able to reconcile the concerns of Nigerians that they raised before the
Well, I think all Nigerians wanted was that in the IREF portal, which is a kind of viewing center of the outcome of most of the polling unit results, that they would like to see that transmitted electronically. We have included that in the amendment that has just been signed into Act of Parliament. But we also took cognizance of areas where there may not be any network, where there may not be communication capacities and availability. And we said, since the polling unit result comes in from EC8A, which is signed by the presiding officer, signed by the agents, and signed and in the presence of security agents, copies are given to all. Then we can use that as a primary source of collation at that unit. And then, of course, we transmit it, even if there's no network at that time. Once we step out of there, maybe towards the ward center or the local government center, it will drop into the IRF, and people will still be able to view. The implication of that is that if what is eventually collated at the next center is different from what is in the IRF, Nigerians will be able to compare whether the election result had been tampered with. And for us, that had always been the problem in the country, that once election result leaves a polling unit, it will be tampered with or mutilated. That has been eliminated today. So we are satisfied that we have met the aspiration of Nigerians. That the issue of real time also comes in. Once you transmit, even if there's no network at that time, once you go to where there's network, it will still drop. So eventually everything will still be shown. So we are happy and satisfied that we have been able to interpret the intentions and the yearnings of majority of Nigerians, not those who are politically motivated, not few people who make noise. Noise is different from lawmaking. And I always say, no matter what we did in the last 2 years, we went to retreat in Lagos, we went to retreat in Ibadan, everywhere. Those things were just mere consultations. The final outcome of what was amended happens in the plenaries of both chambers. And we felt in the last 1 month that we have done a lot. And even the Senate, for instance, we sacrificed even the holidays. The Mr. Speaker had to call back members who were on a bit of a break from plenaries, from budget sessions, to come back and undertake this all-important national assignment. That's why I said we are very satisfied that going forward, we are going to have more transparent elections. This has never happened since 1960. We have never had electronic transmission of results in any of our laws. We never even recognized the IRF in the 2022 Act. All those things are now there. And at the end of the day, more powers are given to political parties, that they should decide who their candidates are. And above all, participatory democracy, more inclusiveness. Members of different political parties are now allowed to do direct primaries. That means you can choose the person you want. Delegate selection, of course, one person can write the list and then just submit. But this time around, the members who are in the political party will stand up and vote for their candidates and the candidates of their choices. That some people don't understand that it is not even good that in an election you have 5 people contesting. One person scores out of 300,000 votes. One person scores 290,000. And then for one reason or the other, he's disqualified by the court. And then the person who scored 1,000, who is not popularly elected, will now be declared a winner. All those things are eliminated. We have now recommended that where such a case happens, then we should call for another election. And that also comes even with the governorship election, where somebody who scores the second highest vote may not meet the 2/3 of the spread of the requirements in local government and will be declared a winner. No, we don't want that kind of situation. We want something that will help Nigerians to truly elect their leaders.
That's the president today, and those are his own views about what has transpired over it. Just before we go to Prof, let's get some insights into what this means. Technically speaking, operation-wise, legal-wise, I'm being joined by a former director of legal, former director public affairs, a lawyer, worked with INEC for several years. Mr. Oluwale Osaziuze, thank you so much indeed for joining us, this time physically.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. You saw this coming, right? That this was going to be the end of that old debate and the back and forth.
I'm not too sure I saw this coming with such haste, almost undue haste, in the sense that I think it was transmitted to the president either yesterday or today, and today the president has signed it. Without, I'm not so sure he had the opportunity at the time to go through the bill clause by clause and to get benefit of the inputs of the Attorney General of the Federation or the other person in view of all the controversy that has surrounded the passage of that bill. I don't think there has been enough time for sober reflection and a sober consideration of the most important and the most controversial parts of that bill. I doubt if that happened.
Which will be a fear for you, isn't it?
It is a fear. It's so those who think that this was predetermined, that this is what we are going to do at the end of the day, and they just worked from answer to question, then it almost validates their position. Those who had such fears, such worries.
What gives you the worry the most in all of, and I know that for you, as you're hearing those clauses, those legal language, the couching, the framing of the law, one thing that comes to your mind is how practically this will be playing out on the field.
Absolutely.
Because those laws, when it comes to election, is not only in the letters. Everything that you say has a meaning on the field.
Absolutely.
What is, and you followed our electoral development over the years.
Yes.
What are the areas, the gray areas for you in these law that's been signed by the president?
Well, let us start with the transmission of results. The president, I listened to him speak about how much of a manual process it is. That is correct. It's correct to that extent. But he's only taking one part of the process and has not juxtaposed it with the earlier part. He has not spoken about the electronic register of voters. That's not the manual. We don't have a manual register. We've gone way, way, way beyond the manual register a long time, several cycles ago. He doesn't take into consideration the beavers. He doesn't take into consideration the smart card itself. And the fact that electronically the beavers will read not just the card, but also the biometrics of the voter. Those are not manual processes. Those are electronic processes. So yes, we do have a hybrid. And then you go to the manual process. And then that is the counting, the balloting itself, the sorting, and the counting. But we now have gone through the benefits of trying these things in the field, testing these things in the courts. And in administering these things, I've seen some of these challenges. And after each cycle, we identify the challenges and try to rectify, try to correct these things. And over the years, INEC has been at the forefront of doing this, along with partners like civil societies. So fair enough. Now, collation of results, transmission and collation have been a bottleneck, has been one of the lacuna, provides an opportunity for interference. We have seen that often
the actual is ill of electoral process.
Yes, it's taken
oftentimes
after you've gotten your ballots, you've cast your ballots, it's counted, and we know what happens in the polling units. And because of that, INEC displayed at the people's results. You display the polling result there on physically. Now, between the polling unit and the collation, oftentimes there have been some little things happen and results change by the time you get to collation. At each level of collation, you see changes, you see manipulation. And it's because of this manipulation, we said, okay, let us look for a system and transmit automatically. If we transmit electronically from the polling units, by the time the polling unit result, the physical copy comes there, the collation officer is waiting for you, the returning officer is waiting for you. He has already seen the result. So he will see whether there has been a tampering with the result that you are bringing from your last, either from the polling unit or from the level of collation.
A lot of those who are arguing, maybe arguing to the, and I try as much as possible, because election and political matter sometimes can get so confusing that people don't even know what this is all about.
Yes.
And I think some of the lawmakers are missing the point.
Absolutely.
The reason why people are agitating for the electronic transmission to be compulsory without any other option is for the issue of transparency and accountability.
Absolutely.
The Form EC8A is enough legally, is enough for the process of recording the result. I mean, but beyond that, I mean, it suffices. Yes. But people feel that a lot of the times in darkness, people manipulate, people will write results. But when they can see, it gives some level of confidence that anyone who wins, it's not like IRF is going to win us any trophy, or is going to make our election with a magic wand, all of a sudden makes it better. But people are saying, we want to be able to see. We want to be able to, good that it's been, IRF is empowered by law. Now, the difference from the Electoral Act of 2022, that's a major difference. But is it that they are missing, or they are not getting the point, or there is a mischief that they are all about? They're not getting, because we've moved past, technology is not our problem. That has been done, dusted, dealt with. The conversation is about transparency and accountability. Or am I missing anything here?
I don't think you are. Regrettably, I heard the president mention something like that, alluded to that. And that is what some of the senators who were opposed to transmission alluded to. And they forget, or mischievously, they don't recall that we have passed that stage. That in the 9th Assembly, in the 8th Assembly, INEC went to defend its position about transmission and the capability and the spread of coverage. Then the NCC, which is the body charged with that legally, came and said we had more than 93% coverage. A technical committee was set up between INEC and the NCC. Dr. Lekki was the representative co-chair of that committee. And that committee came up with a report. I was a member of that committee. And actually one for Dr. Strebo is still alive. He was the one who was the director of ICT, was leading the technical part of the INEC to that committee. And they gave us figures, they gave us things to show that with 2G, 3G, and 4G, as at that time, I'm talking of 8 years ago, it was more than 93% coverage. And provisions could be made for those blind spots. Those are the technical people charged with that responsibility constitutionally, legally, statutorily. And they're telling us this. We've not heard anything from the NCC today.
What is your fear about the provisor? What does he? I mean, Mike Igini is on this program.
It makes nonsense of the whole thing because we are back to the dark days of the incident forms.
And you know, you and I have when you were in INEC, we've had this conversation. And when people were ballot stuffing, people were doing all manner of rubbish in our electoral process because of incident form. Just any little problem, they revert to incident form. Any little problem.
But they don't wait for a problem to happen. In many instances, they just went and say incident form.
Because the law allows for it.
Allowed for it. It was a good idea, but the abuse of it was a challenge. It was a good idea to say, look, anybody who has a voter's card, who turns up, should be allowed to vote, even if he doesn't have any fingers or thumb and or his biometrics is not, or the soft card is not able to capture his biometrics. That was the idea.
And what people are not getting again, sir, is the fact that the difficulty, because the onus to prove, the burden of proving election irregularity is on the man who is saying there is irregularity, not on the INEC who is conducted. And then a lot of people have said, let INEC have the burden of proving that he conducted a good election. If that is not happening, the bottlenecks as a lawyer for proving that there's irregularity has to be done every polling unit. You have a short window to be able to prove that. And people don't understand also the fact that when you capture the polling unit result, if it's tampered with, it takes a long time for you to be able to prove it in court. And that's why people are saying, let us see what is there. Let us have our record. Let the citizen, it's a citizen's tool if people don't get it.
You hit the nail on the head. It's almost impossible, quite honestly. I'll give you an example. The latest we have, and the Supreme Court has validated that exercise was that of Edo, the last 2024. And the petitioners tendered 3 different results in many polling units. All 3 certified by INEC. The first was the EC8A, the one you gave my party agent. It was certified. Then you had the one from the BIVA, the IREV. It was certified. In most cases, they tended to tally. In some cases, they did not. Then you had a third one, the one that was used for collation of the results, certified. You can only have one certified true copy of an original document. All 3 should read the same thing, but it did not. But still, because of the standard and the onus of proof, it was still left to the petitioner, and the court say you should call them from each polling unit. So in a presidential election, if you have problems with 20,000 units, you're going to call 20,000 people, and you have less than 6 months after filing to prove that. It's
legally speaking.
It's an
procedurally in court. Yeah.
Even though the Act has said, look, documents certified by the Commission should speak for themselves to show irregularities, even if it's on the face of it. Yeah. But they said no. In that kind of case, for example, with 3 different results, the owners ought to have shifted or be on the Commission to say, hey, what happened? Which is the correct result? The correct result is not necessarily the one that was used for transmission. Justify it. The one you transmit from the polling ordinarily ought to be the genuine result we should believe, because you did it immediately after the results were declared.
All right. I mean, there are a few things, and as a lawyer, I know that your eyes will be very much interested. I'm also learning also to look more into details of some of this legal language. Well, after this, if the provisor that has been set there has captured the mischief that those who input it have served after this election, maybe in the next amendment, we would have been able to settle it and fix it properly. But there are major fears. And I say again, in 2022, I said it, that political parties need to get consultants to study Electoral Act as it's amended. If not, they're going to have problem.
Yeah.
The same thing here. First, the amendment has shown that INEC funds will be released to INEC at least 6 months, different from the previous window of 1 year.
Yes.
And we know what happened last election cycle, and they had problem because funds didn't come to it early enough.
Yes.
And it caused logistical problems.
I don't know what could have justified that.
They were shrinking the timelines.
Yes, but
and all the timelines were not considering the end implication of this.
I believe they knew, because in the Ninth Assembly, this was discussed. Before all these amendments were done, the previous amendments were done, these things were discussed. You need money to plan. The way it is now, not only, with the Procurement Act, for example, not only must you have a budget for those funds, the funds must have been released to you before you can complete the procurement process. So unless you have those funds in your account, you cannot place orders. Let's say beavers, for example. You cannot place those orders. You can plan for it, you can prepare for it, but you cannot place those orders or advertise that give a contract for the award if you do not have the funds in your coffers.
INEC is under pressure now.
Absolutely.
6 months.
Correct.
If the funds, we're talking about 2025 budget not properly implemented, not so released.
Yes.
And this is happening again. There's another problem, Mr. Uzi.
Many.
Now for voter registration, you will need, in the new provision, birth certificate, Nigerian passport, and NIN. They've removed national ID card and driver's license. That has been removed from that list. And a lot of people have national ID. Driver's license is one of the most popular means of identification.
Yes.
That is not the only one. Voters can download their voter card from INEC's website. The implication is that this may increase voter participation and reduce disenfranchisement, which is a good one.
Yes.
But one area that I would love a lot of the political
be careful,
parties
because I don't want people to download things and say, I downloaded, this is what I downloaded. It means that you have brought a fake thing to the place.
Yeah.
But it's a good provision, ordinarily.
Yes.
Ordinarily.
So you don't have to wait for your PVC to be printed and wasted PVC that are thrown in the gutters and wasting money. But the mode of primaries, only direct primaries and consensus are recognized. Indirect primaries have been removed. Internal
this is
party politics.
Because in the bill that was debated after the public hearings and everything, prior to the 2002 Act, were only two options: direct and indirect.
Direct, yeah.
It was in their wisdom that they brought this issue of consensus.
Yeah.
So now you remove one that was recommended before, and I'll put what is consensus in a democracy?
It looks like a confusion to me, because when they should have just left it.
And in practice, you know what consensus means.
Yes.
There's an arm twisting, and because the governor, the president, or somebody powers that be wants a particular person say, "I have the consensus. Oh, promise you will do this for you," or they blackmail you into submission.
Mr. Uzi, if you are to talk to Nigerian people tonight about this provision and the expectation for the election, what would you say?
Let me speak personally. A lot of people are disillusioned, and it's going to be very difficult to rebuild confidence. And since 2023 and earlier, what we have been advocating is that let us do everything that we can to build confidence. Some people recall we're here and people are destroying their PVCs and they don't have faith in the system. So the onus was on us to try to ensure that people are there, people have confidence, and these are some of the things that will have given us confidence. It sounds almost like a betrayal, a letdown. Actually, when we took 1-2 steps forward and we're taking so many steps backwards, it's a bit of a disappointment. But we will have to meet them. We will have to. If we are going to have democracy, we have to work at it. We have to be eternally vigilant. And I guess we now have to sit down, re-strategize, and insist that take other measures that will ensure that the people's votes count. Because my worry about that proviso now: what happens if signals are jammed? What happens if the presiding officer is compromised and tells you it's subjective and say I could not upload the result? So ultimately, you go back and say, okay, he said he could not upload, so we'll take the manual, and that manual could have been tampered with.
Mr. Oluwole Osazuzi, thank you so much.
So the master strategist President Bola Tinubu don quickly sign bill where Akpabio passed yesterday. Under how many hours una don sign Electoral Act bill into law? Tinubu, why are you running? APC federal affliction, why are you running? Waiting they pursue una. The best form of campaign is good leadership. If you do well for the people, you don't need all this mischief. So una they do a wuye wuru wuru to quickly sign a bill that you believe can impose on Nigerians incompetent and incapacitated leadership, we say you lie. You are deceiving yourselves, APC federal affliction, because Ori Buruku Leshe. This bill, whether they sign them into law, it will be amended and must be amended. Any other part of the bill where Nigerians accept can stay. The clause on mandatory real-time transmission of result must be amended to not have a proviso. That part where una don't go put the Kelleg say that where there is no network, they can use from EC8A form to go back to your manual coalition of result. We reject it. The gods reject it. The people reject it. Because that is a shrine of electoral malpractice. That is your caveat for election rigging and manipulation. Nigerians say no. Nigerians make una no panic, because as it is right now, it is time for Nigerians to mobilize. The Electoral Act Amendment Bill, abi the new act where una don sign, must go back to the National Assembly for amendment of that section 60, because Nigerians do not need provisions that will empower criminals to rig elections. Nigerians, make nobody panic. All the confusion you are seeing with all this run around where they do to do backdoor passage of a bill was all part of the plan. They dance where Akpabio, they dance for Senate, the people where they play drum for the day presidential villa. INEC is not neutral, because Joash Amukwiton will be worse than Mahmoud Yakubu. Everything you see Akpabio and the House leadership play for National Assembly is a script perfectly written by the presidential villa and directed by President Bola Tinubu for the Senate and House of Reps to act out. But as it is today, Nigerians is opportunity to mobilize. The same weapon where they want use to kill you, you must use it to liberate yourself and send criminals out of power. APC, Nigerians reject any bill that has a clause that is going to empower people to rig election. So as it be now, this is not a time to become discouraged or say they don't rig and they don't do this. We have not reached the end of Electoral Act Amendment Bill. No, President Tinubu, we want mandatory real-time electronic technology for transmission of result to be compulsory, and it must be justiciable. Any network where una say una no get to riburuku lenshe, the 200 billion where INEC say they want use for electronic technology, waiting happen. Do they want to go to space? Do they want to go to the moon to go and get satellites? Oriburuku lenshe INEC, Oriburuku lenshe National Assembly, Oriburuku lenshe Presidency. Nigerians, this is a time for all Nigerians to mobilize, because if you allow this assault on democracy to stay, then we can foreclose Nigeria as a country. It then means we want to fully hand over Nigeria to a handful of criminals to decide our collective destinies. President Tinubu and National Assembly, it is not too late to do the right thing. You are going to repeal that bill, re-amend the section that Nigerians are demanding. Mandatory real-time electronic transmission of results without proviso, without any shenanigans. Nigerians, is shine your eye. Now express we dey. Continue. Congratulations on running to sign a bill. The only bill where una don't fit sign where fast pass this one. Now when Tinubu want to borrow money from OPE to claim money points, but this one una don't break Guinness World Record. Less than how many hours? Because you rely on mischief. You rely on loopholes. Why are you running? Now una get governor, get senator, judiciary, INEC, township boys, city or Losho, everybody called city, everything. Yet you are afraid of one single clause, mandatory real-time electronic transmission of result. We say na lie. On this mandate of mandatory transmission electronic, we stand. And Nigerians must get the right thing. Our votes must count, because 2027, nobody will steal our mandate again. The people reject you, the gods reject you. You are amongst leaders most miserable. Nigeria.
So it's good to have you back, in the limelight. But you had issued a statement in which you gave empirical evidence that, in fact, without electronic real-time transmission, most of the lawmakers in the National Assembly may not return. You plotted the turnover rate that we have been having over the years. But do you think that with the decision that has now been taken by the National Assembly, do you think anybody has taken your advice? Do you think that the lawmakers have learned any lessons from what you claim befell their predecessors in that National Assembly? Or are you disappointed in any way?
Thank you, Doctor. Abati, Rufai, and Ayo for having me. But I think that before I answer that question, I need to clear something here. And that is that Nigerians have been wondering that for the past 2 years, I have decided to switch off painfully with respect to anything I have to do with our country. And I put my television on Chinese station, not because I hear Chinese, because I have spent over 30 years of my life, 10 practical years in INEC, together with other Nigerians, on how to remove the history of our election from the poetry of frustration and pain so that we can give meaning and purpose to the ballot as the best means of the expression of the will of the people in a democracy. If after a decade of effort in this direction, we are still back to where we are, and given the fact that when I left office in 2022, I was not part of the 2023 elections, but I was part of those who educated Nigerians. That is why people are holding me accountable. That on this channel, Arise Television, when I left office, the Duke of Delta, Ndoka Bagwena, I called him. I called John Momo, Raymond Dokwesi, the TVC, and I said, I have decided that all the requests for consultancy, I turned everything down. That it's unethical, that having worked in a commission, having been part of those who develop the processes, it would be wrong of me to take any appointment from anybody. On this Arise Television, for over 1 year, you never charged me a dime, nor was I paid by INEC or anybody, but for the service of the country. To now find that all that we did are now in vain, that's why I don't regret that I wasted my 10 years in the service of the fatherland, because I would have been a dead man by now. My colleague in Kano was killed, the family wiped out, because we wanted to do the right thing for our country. But today, the value pyramid of Nigeria is upside down. If you are bad, you can do well in our country. So that's the reason why I switched off. But as I noted somewhere, there comes a time, no matter what, we have no other country other than Nigeria. I would have left when I was in the university, but I stayed back because I wanted a country for us, despite being locked up by Abacha, kept everywhere, and all that. And so, having done all of that, to find out what we are going through is the reason why I switched off. Therefore, your question as to the statement I issued, history is a graveyard for contending opinions. What I put out there is an empirical evidence of how they have suffered. Because the resistance against a credible election in Nigeria has been long-standing. Dr. Gobadia was the first to set up the ICT unit in the INEC. It was a unit in his office and later a full department. At that time, they used the OMIR to try to sanitize the process. From there to Iwu's era, where you have to use DDC, machine capture machine. Iwu set up the VSAT across 774 local government for transmission of results for the 2007 election. It was sabotage. All the billions that were spent wasted. Jega era came in. We started and we identified all election rigging processes and that the EV system must be carried out. The EVs had 4 tracks: the biometric registration, biometric accreditation, e-voting, and e-transmission. But as we were doing that, the members of the National Assembly, under Section 52, they were scared and they prohibited the use of any electronic thing. In fact, they used the word no electronic voting machine. That was the language that was used. But we came in, we saw Section 49, Section 52, Section 68 are the clear election rigging provisions. And for 20 years, we fought to get those provisions removed. Now, having done that, By the time Jega came in, we started with what do you call biometric registration, with the first time that was carried out. Then you remember that we call TVC, temporary voters card. From TVC, we moved to PVC. From PVC, we moved to smart card reader to deal with Section 49, which is the election rigging provision in our laws. All right, we did to deal with that. But what happened? By 2015, of course, the sabotage from within and from out was a major problem. In 2015, by the time we brought the card reader was not a voting machine. Card reader was meant to deal with Section 49 that says that a presiding officer, once you are a voter who's registered in a polling unit, once you come, if he is satisfied, it should be given what he called a ballot to vote. That was where politicians started buying voters' cards, warehousing everything, rigging election. We needed to sanitize it. That was why we brought the idea of the smart card reader to identify, confirm, and authenticate a true voter at the polling unit. But what happened? When the matter went to courts, the apex court of our fatherland painfully declared that, oh, the smart card reader, beautiful device, however, it should have been written in the Electoral Act. Today, the debate that has held this country down for the past 2 months or thereabout is brought about by the Supreme Court of our fatherland. And I'll give you what the Supreme Court did, how it has thrown everything in disarray. Supreme Court tribunals declared that the regulation and guideline of INEC that stated clearly on the basis of our historical experience that where the results that have been declared at the polling unit that expected or mandated to be sent to the IREB, so that when the result is already on the IREB, nobody will change it. Supreme Court said that IREB is an amusement center. It's a viewing center. It's of no effect and all that. Now, the question now is, what happened to the lineup of authorities, 1979, 1983, and all subsequent judgment of the court, Supreme Court, up to 2015, when the court declared that in any elections, there are 3 principal legal frameworks that govern election, which are the Constitution, the Electoral Act, and indeed regulations and guidelines made pursuant to the powers given both in the Constitution under Section 160 as well as Section 148 to make rules for the conduct of election. It should be noted.
Okay. I want to come in here. Thank you for all of this you have said. See, as a patriot, the truth has to be said. The horse has bolted away from the stable. We know that those that supported card reader and they called for electronic votings are the ones against it today because it's not going to benefit them. But we know how they spoke to you, supported card reader and all of that. So they have gotten what they want. As we speak today, what's on the IRF is not justiciable. Can you tell us some secrets of rigging so that people can be aware going up to the elections and what people should do as we speak? The matter is already gone. This house we have, they can't be trusted. They are rubber stamped. They've already passed what they want to pass. It is us Nigerians that remain now, those that still have the interest of the country at that. Point out the areas they might likely use to rig with the law that is on ground and how Nigerians can be aware.
Yes, why pointing that? Because actually it becomes this whole engagement. But the fact that I have accepted this invite,
we have to. You
know,
will not relent.
I see this as a mere academic. But let me quickly say this here. And that is that for 10 years, particularly from the Jega leadership up to Mahmoud Yakubu, so much effort was done for e-transmission. There was the INEC NCC report on electronic transmission, which was ready as at 2018. Remember that under the Buhari administration, regrettably, a government that came in through the risk that most of us took, they refused to have amendment to the act. It was only in 2019 that there was no electoral act to amend all the issues we identified in the 2015 election. What was the reason given? Was that ECOWAS required that 6 months to a process they commenced in 2016. Eventually, there was no electoral act in the conduct of 2019 election. Now, when the debate with respect to the 2022 electoral act, don't forget that Buhari regime rejected all the bill 4 times. Yes. Rejected it. Those around the president ensured that it was not done. But there's no book of remembrance in our country. If not for those of us who did the right thing in 2015, those in power in 2015, they will not be there today. Yes. But the moment they came in, they eliminated everybody that was named, all the director and all of that. Yeah. That is what happened. So now, when we, in 2021, when the debate came up, the debate was premised on 2 grounds. That INEC was not ready, and that there was no national infrastructure. When that debate was going on in 2021, in respect to the 2022 Electoral Amendment Bill Act, INEC was never invited. And I likened, and I addressed the press conference, and I said, why is it that we are behaving like some of the group of people I saw in America? They discuss about the right of abortion of women, but women are not part of it. Do men get pregnant? Why is it that those who are not conducting elections are the ones saying INEC is not ready? That led to a statement issued by the commission to the effect that the commission had carried out 10 years of piloting. As a matter of fact, as a commissioner in Cross River State, Leah Imoke's second term election was conducted, and we pioneered the first under Jega leadership, the transmission of results from the ward in the 18 local government. Like your studio here, I sat in my office and I was seeing the result, and they were updating from each of the ward, local government.
So because of time, all the arguments, don't make it. We know they are lying already. We've debunked all the arguments long ago. It has been passed. So how can we, the areas they are going to use to rig, tell Nigerians, all those arguments, we've made it in the past. We know they are
the consequence, the danger of what has been passed is that we are bringing back what we call incident form. This is another version of incident form. Yes. Because there will be no network. History is a graveyard for contending opinions. When we introduced Carida, we decided to have an application for those who don't have fingers. So that we are looking for all-inclusive electoral process. Yes. But you know what happened? Politicians connive with INEC full staff. That application for only those who don't have fingers was now used to use incident form. The whole of community no longer have fingers and all of that. You see, discretionary power can be abused. The danger of what is going to happen in 2027 as follows. At the polling units, presiding officers' lives are going to be in danger. Because where Nigerians are gathered, results of polling will be announced. Everyone could look at his telephone and you could see network. But the presiding officer says that there's no network. You are going to put the life of that presiding officer in danger. Meanwhile, the children of all the political elite are not going to be at the polling unit. It's the youth corpus that they are going to be faced with. This is a clear danger. Okay, so with respect to that, so what they are going to do now is like an incident form. Another version of incident form, which for you to sabotage the entire.
Another one. Can we do another one so that we'll be revealing all the secret to the people?
No, I don't think every of these things I would like to say here.
Let's say it. That's why people will hear it.
Because first, one of the danger of what they are trying to do is this. You know that in 2015, in 2019, there were evidence of collusion of some of our staff when they gave the serial number of EC8A in certain polling units for people to print. So when you now have, what do you call it, from EC8A, that have the same serial number and the essential feature, and they are transmitted to the IRF, which one are you going to pick?
So they are going
That
to
is
print ECA.
yeah, yes, because in 2015 it happened.
Yeah.
In 2019 it happened. When INEC went to court to charge, some of the people came to the Senate. One or two persons, it was a common knowledge, came to the Senate. They produced INEC results. But the essential features were not complete. INEC went to court. Regrettably, the court upheld a fake result produced by, even when INEC distant, he said that this is not our original copy of
So I
result.
see that, Mr. Eken, and thank you so much. It's not just the legislature, because now you've also looked at even the judiciary. And even in the case where you came out to give evidence, they still ruled in favor of a result that was not produced by INEC. So even though the legislature is in the eye of the storm currently, it is across the three tiers of government: executive, legislature, and judiciary, in terms of how badly our elections have been run and how credible they are. What is the way out? Because I don't want to leave people feeling despondent or increasing voter apathy for Nigerians who are watching. I want us to still have that sense of a light, despite how dark the tunnel is. So what is the way out? And maybe that's why Rufai was asking the question around where are some of the errors still at now, because no matter how bad it seems, there are still people who are willing to go all the way in defense of democracy. What are the options available?
The greatest option that we have is the judiciary that must stand tall and mighty in defense of democracy and the rule of law. The 2022 Electoral Act, there are profound provisions that we put in there, or even unknown to politics. If you record that in one of our program, we used to tell people there are provisions I don't want to mention on the program.
Those ones. Those not tell
Now,
politicians. Let's not tell
I
them.
say this because were it not for the judiciary, we would not be where we are today. This debate was because of judiciary. Transfer, transmit. Section 60, subsection 5, that said it must be done in accordance to the mode prescribed by INEC. Paragraph 38 of the regulation and guideline actually prescribe that mode. Let me say this here. How do we go forward? One of the things you must remember about the military, despite all the things that we fought military, it was the decision of the military that if election is, there was a decree that if election is bad, is rigged, it should not be the court that should confer victory on anybody, that should go back to the people to be sure of the will of the people. But what we have found in our country, historically, the judiciary had never been on the side of the electorate in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. As we saw what happened in June 12th, and everything that has happened so far, judiciary had never been. And I say this here. Democracy is a danger. When judiciary shows sign of weakness, collapse, or irrelevance, the only reason why we fought the military, talking about importance of judiciary here, is because there was no parliament. The people have no say. Otherwise, there was an executive, there was judiciary. The only arm that was missing was parliament. And that was why we wanted democracy. How do you explain that a National Assembly that don't carry out public hearing across the geopolitical zone and the people spoke? Look at what has happened. The Falcon no longer listen to the Falconer. This is what Professor, one of your own, John Frisk, referred to as semiotic democracy. There's a gulf between what the people want and what had been given. So judiciary is the greatest challenge. My constituency, they have failed. With respect to that, I must say this because I have all the records. I have all the record of failures. When it comes to election, judiciary have not done well. In fact, the Nigerian people now see my constituency as a veritable, conspiracy against them, because they have never given effect to it. Look at what they have done with primary. today, nobody should think about any primary in Nigeria because Supreme Court struck down the practice direction that was issued in line with Section 29 of the Act.
Okay.
Today, no primary in Nigeria. So, the way forward is for the judiciary to stand tall and mighty in defense of due process, because what we are saying now is not what is expected.
Okay.
Dr. Abati has a question.
Again, if I may come in here. Now, number one, you've written a lot about turnover and all of that. Some people have said it's scaremongering. I don't know whether you have received that reaction. People are saying, in any case, if 70% or 80% of the current members of the National Assembly don't come back, Nigerians will even celebrate. So turnover in the National Assembly should not be an issue. And in any case, the lawmakers have demonstrated with the drama yesterday that they really don't care one way or the other. You've talked about dangers. Now, as a patriot who still believes in this country, two suggestions. Some people have said you should write a book because you seem to know so much about our electoral process. But more importantly, what are your recommendations beyond what has happened with the Electoral Act Amendment Bill? What are your recommendations? You've talked about the role of the judiciary. How about the security agencies? How about the media? How about civil society generally? Without falling foul of the allegation of trying to incite people when you say there will be danger at polling units. That could discourage people. As a former chief electoral officer yourself, you should be encouraging people to come out. But what do you recommend?
Dr. Abati, a stone seen coming should not blind the eye. And when I give my advice, the reason why I broke my silence before the decision taken was to offer the nation, particularly members of the National Assembly, the opportunity to know this. With respect to the figures given out, all you need to do is to go and check the list of those who were elected in 2019, compare it with the list of those who were elected in 2023. That will give you the figure. With respect to why, it does not really matter, that cannot be correct because we have had brilliant legislators who are so good, who were brilliant, independent, showed integrity. But because governors are the one that will determine who becomes a member of House of, who get a ticket to go to the State House of Assembly, to House of Rep, to Senate, most of them did not return. And where you don't return, the only fallback position would have been in a robust system that we have put in place to be able to secure you. That is why it is very important. Now, when you talk about scaremongering, there's nothing about scaremongering because, you see, it is the home of a coward that people usually gather to point at the tomb of yesterday's warrior. A young man that I recommended must be given a job from Osun State, who is now still working when I was the commission, demonstrated bravery when he was about to be killed. Certain safeguards were not there. When you say that, give an option to a presiding officer that if there is no network, there will be no network because the capacity to connive the state, to connive with mobile network operators, not to allow network to go on, is there. I don't want to mention a state. In 2007 and 2023, that state ensured that on governorship election, they jammed the entire system so that nobody could get in touch with what they were doing. What we are doing now, it is terrible because even though the fact that you transmit directly, there are other things that people like to do during election. You have to look at ad hoc staff recruitment. Who are the people we are going to recruit? Because in the final analysis, from INEC leadership headquarters, INEC office at the state, INEC office at the local government, that is where the battle ends. From there, polling unit down to the last stage of collation, it is those Nigerians who are going to be brought in. At every state, in every state of the federation, a REC will be deploying, depending on the number of local government, For example, in Akwa Ibom, I deployed over 28,000 ad hoc staff. How many staff do you have and all that? These are the people that are going to conduct the election. When you now give them this type of omnibus, latitude and all that, it's going to be abused. There will be no network. That is what is going to happen in that election. And so, when you talk about remedy, I would have thought that the reform we're talking about, that's the reason I didn't want to participate. I was thinking that it would be about how to reform, ensure that the onus of proof of how well election is conducted should be on the election management body, as we demonstrated while we were in office, wherever I served. That was what I did. Two, I had thought that this disposition of election matter before people are sworn in will be what we'll be looking out for. We didn't see that at all. Where is the Electoral Offences Tribunal that for the past 20 years, it will not be there? So the issue about e-transmission is the resistance coming from the elite.
The question I've been asking everybody that they can't answer me. With what they have passed.
Let me ask you.
Will
you then recommend to President Bola Tinubu not to sign the bill as it is?
It is by indeed humble recommendation to Mr. President that you are a man of history. You were a senior man to very many of us in the struggle at a time when the journey of Nigeria and the prospect of democracy was less certain. What is going to be presented before you is a recipe for chaos. It's a recipe to undermine all that you have done while we were in the trenches. And also remember that at a time when the PDP was in office, and when we were in office, and they were saying that there was going to be a federal might, some of us stood out to say, no, in 2015, it's going to be the might of the people, not federal might, but the might of the people, through the ballot, that should determine what will happen. You should be a man of history. What is put before you, please take it back. Don't sign it.
Okay. Real quickly, I want to ask you, the question I've been asking everybody I can't answer. Will the result on the IRF be justiciable?
The Supreme Court, by the decision of the last decision of the Supreme Court, it is very clear when the Supreme Court says that the IRF is just a viewing center and that it ought to have been in the Electoral Act. I disagree with that decision. It is contrary to the whole line of authorities. Decision by the Supreme Court itself, because regulations and guidelines made by the Commission pursuant to Section 160, as well as Section 148 of the Act, they have the force of law. They are subsidiary legislation. As a matter of fact, INEC is the only regulator of election in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And the first primary responsibility of every regulator, it is law-making, rule-making. And that is why the Central Bank of Nigeria don't go to the National Assembly every now and then in terms of what you need to do to regulate the banking sector. That is how it should be. That was why Jonathan, when he was in office, and when we came on board, we looked at all the executive bodies set up under Section 153. And we pointed out to President Jonathan because the law as it was then was to the effect that all the bodies set up under Section 153 are subject to the direction and control of the president with respect to their powers to make regulations and procedure. It was Jonathan regime who now sent the first alteration in 2011 that ensured that with respect to the Independent National Electoral Commission, and you should go and read it, these powers to make rules, otherwise regulating procedure shall not be subject to the direction of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It was President Jonathan who put that in. The decision of INEC that transmit the results from the polling unit to the IRF, it can be encapsulated in three words: trust, safety, and efficiency of the decision of the people. Because everything that we have developed is to ensure that who becomes what must be determined at the polling unit, not in the court of law. The court should not be determined who becomes a governor, a member of House of Assembly, a president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Let that be the decision of the people. That is the lesson. That is the lesson that we must take from United Kingdom. Britain that even introduced Nigeria into election rigging. For a period of almost 100 years, there was no post-election adjudication in United Kingdom. And that is what we should learn, because the court in England, politicians, they are scared of the court in England. Because in the absence of strict and purposive interpretation of the law, because every provision of Electoral Act, so sponsored by INEC, is to deal with a mischief, that it is now the duty of the court to advance the remedy that have been proffered to deal with that remedy, and not to do what they are doing right now, working with politicians, agreeing with them to do what is being done. That is the only way we can have a democracy that we are proud of. That's the only way we can build a society where there will be opportunity for all and responsibility from all.
Indeed, very well said, very well summarized in terms of your points that you've been making today with us, Barrister Mike Igini. Great to have you on the show today, and thank you very much for breaking it down for us. Like we already said, it's already been done, well, until the assent by the president, and you have made the recommendations that he should not assent to that. Well, let's see.
So, my people, that is it. It is really, really quite unfortunate that Nigeria Senate and Tinubu refuse to listen to the voice of Nigerians. Honestly, Nigerians are really, really disappointed today, knowing fully well that Nigerians are still protesting about this bill, but Tinubu went ahead and signed it into law, and internet is on fire because Nigerians are still reacting. Let's look at some of the reactions before we go. So, this person said, "The criminals have rushed to sign the fraud into law. You will meet Nigerians in the field. They should pray that there will be no military coup if chaos erupts during the election." And this person said, "So Nigerians protesting at the National Assembly are few people making noise? That which you and your criminal are asking for, you will get it. As for Nigeria and Nigerians, we cannot allow these criminals to win." And this person said, "Nigerians are still waking up gradually. They have slept on serious issues for far too long. The dirty attitude of some of our representatives is gradually waking them up. They need to start treating Nigerians with respect." And this person said, "They just took us back to 1999. We have never had it this bad." Honestly, these people no rent Nigerians at all. After protesting, these people just took us backward. Very, very quite unfortunate. Anyway, my people, I say make I bring this update to you guys. I don't know what you think, which I would love you guys to leave your thoughts in the comment section as always. Please subscribe for more updates, like the video, share, and welcome to the channel.